Today we're talking about a topic that's often misunderstood and, honestly, often avoided. Why many men don't speak up when they've experienced sexual assault or domestic violence. And I want to start by clearing something up right away. Silence doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Silence usually means the barriers to speaking feel bigger than the pain feels survivable in public. And those barriers aren't small. People sometimes assume, if it happened to him, why didn't he say something? As if the ability to talk is automatic. But for a lot of men, speaking up can feel like stepping into a room where you expect to be doubted, mocked, or even blamed. Exactly. So let's unpack what's really going on under the surface. Because when you look closely, the silence is usually built from conditioning, stigma, fear, and isolation. Not from a lack of trauma. Let's start with conditioning because it begins early. A lot of boys grow up swimming in messages like man up, don't cry, be tough, handle it yourself. They sound like everyday phrases, but they add up to a rule book. A rule book that says a real man is supposed to be in control all the time, strong, unshakable, dominant. And then abuse happens, and it doesn't just hurt physically or emotionally. It collides head-on with that identity. And here's where it gets brutal. Instead of thinking, someone harmed me, many men immediately think, what's wrong with me? They go straight to self-interrogation. Why didn't I stop it? Why didn't I fight back? How did I let this happen? That inner conversation is soaked in shame. And shame is a silencer. If you've been taught that being hurt equals being weak, then talking about being hurt feels like confessing failure. Which leads right into another major barrier, the story society tells about violence. There's still a widespread script that says men are the aggressors and women are the victims. Now yes, many cases follow that pattern. But when that becomes the only story people can imagine, everyone outside that script gets erased. And if your experience doesn't match the approved victim narrative, you start expecting disbelief before you even open your mouth. Especially men abused by female partners. They get hit with comments like, you're bigger than her, or just leave, or how could she possibly hurt you? As if abuse is just about size or physical force. When in reality, abuse can be threats, coercion, humiliation, control, stalking, financial restriction, emotional sabotage, isolating someone from friends and family. And those things can destroy a person. And when your pain is treated as impossible, you start to feel invisible. Like you don't qualify for help. Like you're going to have to carry it alone. There's also the fear of ridicule. We can't talk about male silence without talking about how often male vulnerability gets turned into a joke. In certain friend groups, workplaces, online spaces, the moment a man admits he was hurt, somebody turns it into a punchline. And that's not just uncomfortable. It's humiliating. For some survivors, the risk of being laughed at feels worse than the pain of keeping it hidden. That's how powerful shame is. And if the assault was by another man, some survivors also fear people will make assumptions about their sexuality or identity, or question them in ways that feel invasive or accusatory. So now it's not just, will people believe me? It's, will people use this against me? Right. Then there's the institutional side, the fear that authorities won't respond fairly. Some men worry if they report, law enforcement won't take it seriously, or professionals will minimize it, or worse, the man will be treated like the perpetrator. And beyond being dismissed, there are practical fears. What if this affects your reputation? Your job? A custody situation? What if people in your community hear about it and decide you're weak, or dramatic, or not a real man? Even if those outcomes don't happen every time, the possibility can be enough to stop someone from reaching out. Because in that moment, staying silent feels like the safer option. Another huge piece is emotional isolation. We say men should talk about it, but then we look at how many men are socialized to build friendships. Often it's activity-based. Sports, games, work, hobbies. Not always the kind of relationships where you can say, something happened to me, and I'm not okay. So even if a man wants to speak, he may not have a place to put the truth. No safe person. No language for it. And without an outlet, trauma doesn't vanish. It just changes shape. It can show up as anger, numbness, depression, insomnia, workaholism, risky behavior, substance use, withdrawing from relationships. People might see the symptoms, but never understand the source. And that brings us to the psychological cost of silence. If you can't talk about trauma, it doesn't stay neatly contained. It leaks into how you see yourself, how you trust people, how safe you feel in your own body and mind. Some men cope by minimizing it, telling themselves, it wasn't that bad, or other people have it worse, or it doesn't count. And that can work for a while, until something triggers the memory later and it comes back with force. Others bury it completely, and that burial can come at a price. Distance in relationships, difficulty with intimacy, feeling detached from life, or constantly scanning for danger without knowing why. So if we agree the silence is real and the barriers are real, the next question is, what actually helps? First, we have to update our definition of strength. Strength can't mean never talk. It can't mean never need help. Real resilience includes honesty. It includes seeking support. It includes saying, something happened, and I'm dealing with it. And culturally, we have to widen the public conversation about abuse. Harm doesn't require a specific gender. Acknowledging male victims doesn't erase anyone else's suffering. It just tells the truth. Abuse can happen to anyone. Support systems matter too. If shelters, hotlines, counseling programs, and awareness campaigns clearly communicate that men are welcome, that changes the emotional equation. It tells a man, you won't be laughed out of the room. You belong here. And training matters. Law enforcement, therapists, social workers, medical staff, anyone who might be the first point of contact, needs to understand what male victimization can look like. Because if the first response is skepticism or a joke that can shut someone down for years, then maybe the most human part of all of this, safe spaces where men can talk without being punished for it, peer groups, survivor communities, even one trusted friend who can respond with, I believe you. I'm here. There's something life-changing about hearing another person say, it happened to me too. It breaks the illusion that you're the only one. Trauma thrives in isolation, and connection disrupts that. So the deeper truth is this. For many male survivors, the biggest battle isn't only the abuse. It's the silence that comes afterward. The silence that says, no one will understand. The silence that says, you'll be judged. The silence that says, just take it. But when that silence gets replaced with belief, respect, and real support, something shifts. Speaking out stops being a loss of masculinity and starts being what it actually is, a step toward healing. If you're listening and this connects with you personally, you deserve support. You deserve to be taken seriously. And if you're listening as a friend, a partner, a parent, a colleague, your reaction matters more than you think. Belief, patience, and respect can be the difference between someone staying trapped and someone finding a way forward. We'll end on this. Pain doesn't become smaller because it's quiet. And healing doesn't begin because someone gets over it. Healing begins when the truth has somewhere safe to land. Abuse does not care about gender, strength, or expectations. It affects human beings. When men feel forced into silence because they are told they should be invulnerable, the damage goes far beyond the original harm. Real progress comes when society stops deciding who is allowed to be a victim and instead focuses on believing, supporting, and protecting anyone who has been hurt. Only then can survivors, male or female, step out of silence and begin to heal.